then I had my son, who's 11 years old, fly with his drone. And because the streets were empty, he was filming like beautiful aerial shots of all the areas in Miami. And then I put that video in the back of my green screen. So I don't know how exactly he did it. He did all of that. He makes $4 per video.
So hold on, stop right there. So I love, first of all, it's a huge tax, incentive. I'm not a CPA, but to employ your children. I definitely employed my stepdaughters when they were home. Now they're in their 20s. But how old is your son? Just so we can give perspective.
11.
He's 11. So when you're watching her videos, I want you to put that her 11-year-old son did this. So they
were not perfect in the beginning, right? Because, my hair was sometimes a little bit green, but I think it's important to keep in mind that perfection is really overrated. And I'm really a perfectionist. I always want everything in my life to be perfect. And that hindered me from taking action. And in that moment, I was just, let's just throw out some information. Let's just throw out some videos. I don't care if they're perfect. I'm not going to win an Academy Award, but I just want to be there. I want to entertain people. So I did those market update videos. And then at the end of each market update video, I said, are you curious on how much your home is, how much your home is worth, or how much your home can sell for? And then I put a home value link. I think it's miami-value.com. So I bought that link on GoDaddy. You can buy that also for your market, right? Something simple. If it's too complicated, people don't do it. People find an excuse not to do it, right? So it needs to be a simple link. And I linked that to a lead generation website that I had for home values. And I got a lot of leads from it. And now I'm sending out postcards with market updates, and I have the same link, and I'm generating leads that way. So I did that. And then the other thing I did a lot of virtual open houses, because I had a lot of listings that were sitting in the beginning and that were vacant. And I just walked in there and did like a walkthrough for 15 minutes. And people really loved that. So once we started doing that, we stopped doing all the professional videos, because people really wanted to have like a real person walk through the house and laugh and make comments and joke. And I interacted with everyone that was watching. And I had on some of my videos like 5,000 views. It was incredible.
And do you have 5,000 people coming through a general open house? No.
I wish. Well, right now I don't, but no, I don't.
So how did you track this? People are probably wondering, like, you're obviously getting leads through this. How did you track your business, and are you tracking your business that way?
I track my numbers, and I can definitely say that I've sold. I did in 2020, I made almost the same money like in 2019 when the market was not hit by COVID. So it did work. And most of the people in my market made less.
I would say at 30 million as a single agent, you do not have a team. You very much, you were successful, right? And
I was successful in it. And I did have to work harder in some ways, because, my hours were longer. I let go of my assistant in March. So I didn't even have an assistant, right? So I was the assistant. I had to do all those assistant jobs. So I worked a lot of long hours, but I perfected my skills in some ways that I will never go back to the before. So for example, my buyer's consultations, my seller's consultations, they're all online. I don't go to anybody's house unless they have done with me a Zoom consultation. So that saves me a ton of time. I don't have to drive to the houses that often anymore and then find out that they're interviewing 5 other agents that are doing it for 4%, right? Who wants to be in that position? I definitely don't. So I became a little bit pickier on who I take on. I became super efficient, and I became very aware of my time, because time is our most valuable asset, and I don't want to spend time on anyone that is not motivated. So the phrase that I always mention to people is, I'd rather lay by the pool than work with someone that's not motivated or not nice. And it's very true. So once I perfected those skills, which was about July, August, I actually did have more time on my schedule that I was able to spend with my children.
And you have beautiful children and a beautiful family. So again, follow Kathrin. You'll get to see every aspect of her life. And I will tell you, you are really diligent about time blocking to make sure you do spend that time with your children. Because like you said, you're not going to get that time back.
Yes.
And so let's go back to the buyer consultation, because I know that a lot of agents battle this kind of drunk monkey or language in their head,
Yes.
that a buyer is not going to sign an agreement, but they're missing the appointment, right? They're counting an appointment as a showing, and really that buyer consultation is a huge piece that they're missing in order to understand, is this person a right fit for me relationship wise, right? And it's exclusive right to represent them in a brokerage relationship. So tell me what your buyer consultation looks like, and you're adamant about having that in order to work with someone because of your time.
Okay, so I have right now, I'm working right now with 14 referrals from other agents. I'm huge on referrals. And there is 5 people that have not signed me a buyer's agreement yet. And I haven't sent them any properties. And I'm waiting on them to make time. I find it very important, because why would you work with someone if you don't know if you're going to get paid? Right? It's for me a huge liability on my time again. I don't want to spend with someone 5 to 10 hours when I rather spend time with my children. So if somebody is not willing to sign that buyer's agreement, I feel they're going to cheat you later. So if they don't see the value in you, then move on. There's other motivated people. So yes, I do have the luxury to pick and choose now, because I'm very busy and I have a lot of business going on. But if you show people the value of your time, and that you don't send them properties before you have that signed, they accept that, and they want to work with someone that's good and that values themselves. So my buyer's consultation is, I did everything on Google Drive. That's very easy for me, because I can change it at any time. I don't need to wait on I have a virtual assistant. I just also hired her husband. So she does all of my marketing. So basically she did in Google Slides, the buyer's presentation. And if I have a buyer's appointment, I need to change something, I can do it myself. It's very quick. So I always update the numbers of homes we've sold during COVID to show my buyers, that we're doing a lot of business. And that way they're also very confident in working with me. I'm working with a lot of people that are from out of town, and the process with them is that they fly in for 2 days. And in those 2 days, we show them 5 properties, 6. My expectation is now 3 to 5 properties.
I love it.
Before that, it was 5 to 7. I always say, look, I will show you more if you need, but in our experience, it has shown that the more homes you see, the more confused you get. So most people right now, they look at 3 to 5 homes, most of them really 2 to 3.
Well, and what I say, if I may, a lot of times, and you're saying the same thing, is if you're showing them more than 5 homes, then you have to go back to that needs analysis and do a better buyer consultation and open your ears, because you have to listen to what they really need. And and especially right now with no inventory, 5 homes is a lot.
Yes,
actually
5 homes is really a lot. And, I've had people that looked at 10. I just had someone from LA, they came, they looked at 10, but they picked 1. And now they're not even coming back for closing. So the way I work right now with buyers, and this is also something I started doing COVID, because I got so busy with showings. First of all, I have always at any time between 20 and 25 listings. So to show all those listings in person, I don't know how it is in your market. In my market, I have to be there as a listing agent to open the door and show the property. And it's very time consuming if I have to run to every showing. So I was like from morning to evening, showing properties. So I leveraged that now. I found a girl, she's in my office. She's a newer agent. I pay her per showing. I pay her $35 per showing. And she opens up all my listings, and she's super happy because she can do her business on the side and do the showings for me. And it's a great experience for her, and everybody loves her. So she knows the properties really well. So I have that off my plate. So now I'm sometimes during the day, I'm really bored. So she also works with my buyers. And that was for me a huge aspect that I had to overcome my own limiting beliefs, because I always felt I had to be there for the buyers myself to hold their hands. So now in the buyer's consultation, I tell them up front, I said, I might be there at the first or second appointment, but then for the rest of the appointments, I have a showing agent. She's a licensed agent, and she's really, really good. And she will open you the doors. And I'll make sure that I say it this way. She will open you, because the truth is, as a buyer's agent, you don't do anything besides opening the doors, right? And they either like it or they don't. It's nothing you can do as an agent to talk them into a property. They either like it or they don't. So since I set the expectation, everybody was cool with it, and I was so surprised. So by the time the showing agent is done with the showings, she calls me if there's any deficiencies on the property or anything that needs to be repaired. She takes pictures, videos, she sends it to me, and she tells me exactly which properties they liked. And then I call them the moment they jump in their car to discuss the properties, and they feel like I have been there with them. And it's so much more efficient. And by the time they are in their car, I can be at the office and write up the offer.
Wow. Okay. So how did you find this agent? Was this someone you attracted from another agency, or was this internal in Keller Williams?
I called my productivity coach in the office and I said to her, look, I'm overwhelmed. I have too many showings. Do you have any agents that would like to do showings? So I tried the first girl once. She was never available. She didn't have time. She always had like, things going on. You really need to find someone that doesn't have a life.
Take note, everyone.
You really need to find someone that doesn't have a life. I mean, I hate to say it, but the other girl, she always had, like, she was partying, then she had this going on and that. And then after like 10 showings, she was asking me to work with the buyers exclusively. And, I mean, you need to earn your rights, right? I mean, the other girl, now I'm open to, even like have her potentially later as a buyer's agent, but she's proven herself, because I mean, she's gotten me over 10 buyers under contract, and she's really, really good. And, she mentions my name a lot. She always says, Kathrin will call you. Kathrin will do this. Kathrin will do that, so we don't lose connection with the buyer. But she was great. She has 2 children, but they're teenagers, so she can leave whenever she wants. And today she wasn't available because she's taking her kids to the dentist, and another day she wasn't available, but that was the only times in 3 months. So you really need to find someone that doesn't have like issues like with working on weekends, because I want to take off weekends now. I've been doing this for 9 years. So I'm like, I don't like to do showings on weekends. So, she needs to be there on weekends.
It's nice having weekends off for sure.
Yeah.
So I want everyone to kind of hear that you just said she's proven herself. And so if you have someone that is talented around you, maybe keep your eyes and ears open for someone that wants opportunity, because like you said, you're paying $35 a showing. She's not doing this for the money in the beginning. I think she really sees that there could be potentially a future of you inspire her in some way to either learn from you or to maybe become your buyer's agent, whatever that looks like. I feel like, yes, she's wanting to earn the money, but there's a bigger picture for her.
That's true. Although she made like in the last 2 weeks, she made $1,500.
Oh, wow.
Showings. And she still has her own business on the side. I think, it's a nice little side income when you just start out. But I definitely have bigger things in mind for her, because she's really good. I trust her. And whenever sometimes when there's a third showing on a property, then I go, just to say hi to the parties. And the other agent always tells me, oh my God, your showing agent is amazing. So I really like to hear that. Versus I had before like a licensed assistant that did showings for me, and she was just, not very social and not very good.
Yeah, I think they need to be knowledgeable. Like you said, if she knows the property, a lot of times, people want to get in that position, but if they don't study the property, it doesn't work, because it has to be someone like you that understands the property at a high level. Even if they're doing an open house for you, that's really important to study the inventory.
I have my standards, and I have like a whole standard sheet that I give everyone. And I always make sure they know they're an extension of me and they represent me. And if they don't look the part, or if they don't dress the part, I even have in there how they have to dress. Because I think it's so important. I've had people before that were not dressed appropriately. Like, for example, they can't dress too sexy, especially when the wife shows up, right? Yeah. You can't do that. And some girls don't understand that. And I have to explain it to them that, the husband most of the time buys the house, but the wife makes the decision. So you need to make sure you dress appropriately. They need to have their nails done. They need to have their hair neat. and certain things. They need to mention my name a lot. They can't give out their business card, stuff like that. You know, you need to, like with everything, like my buyers and sellers consultation, you need to set the right expectation with people.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just like, you know, we all kind of have an office code. I mean, we're 1099, but we have an expectation of the dress code. And it's, you know, typically not jeans with holes in them and short skirts and low cut, you know,
Yes.
no cleavage. I mean, you know, you want to dress professionally. It's, you know,
Yes.
dress to impress. And, you know, sometimes it's silly for us to have to say that out loud, but you know, that's
Absolutely.
the environment we're in, especially with luxury. So I like that you have those standards and expectations. So let's go back to your listing and buyer consultations on Zoom. I think you're giving everyone heartburn. You're making me really happy because I understand the whole working efficiently. And when you get to a certain level, you're like, I don't have time to drive to your house and look at your house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But until you get to that level, I want everyone on the call to understand how you came to that decision. I want their heartburn to settle a little bit and tell them the process and how you made that work and how you actually, how many appointments you do now per day. Just what does your day look like when you're doing this?
You mean for the listing consultations?
Yes, because I think people think, and this is probably how I thought too before we had Zoom and we were using it at a high level. Most people started using Zoom during COVID. Maybe there were some others using it for consultations before, but I think the fear is I don't know the house if I don't go see it. But I hear what you're saying is let's see if you see my value and we're the right fit before I waste my time even going to interview when you have a bunch of other agents that are willing to discount their commission, which is not me.
Yeah. Okay. So I call it a marketing consultation. I don't even call it a listing appointment. So I have 2 to 3 a week. I don't have all too many. Most of my business comes from referral, repeat business, and I don't do any cold calling. So I'm very lucky that I'm in this position, but I'm very close with my sphere of influence and with my referral partners. So most of the appointments that I have are really like hot leads, right? They're people that are ready to list and they interview maybe 1 or 2 agents, right? So the process is I get in touch with them, I talk to them quickly, and I determine with them.
Hold on, let me mute Jerry.
Okay.
Jerry, I've muted him twice. Sorry, Jerry.
I set up with them, I talk with them quickly. I tell them, look, it's very important for me that we meet face to face, at least over the computer screen, so I can go with you over my marketing materials. And then once we have the listing presentation set up, marketing presentation set up, I send them an email with an interview that was featured in a magazine about my business. I send them the marketing presentation up front, and I send them like a little email with video links to my business. Okay. And I write in the email, I would really appreciate if you would take a few minutes to review the material, because when we have our appointment, I don't want to be sitting there just talking about myself.
Right.
Okay. So then when we have the Zoom appointment, I tell them it's not going to take longer than 20, 30 minutes. Luckily, most of my sellers are a high D. It takes 5 to 10 minutes. They're really quick and they're like, okay, where do I sign? But some people are not a high D, and then I have to take a little bit longer, then it takes maybe an hour. So I ask them first, did you review my marketing presentation? And most of them say yes, but I know when they're lying, I can tell. And when you know they're lying, you have to go a little bit more in detail. And then I ask them, do you have any questions? And most of the time they don't have a lot of questions. The page that I always go over with is the page called the proactive approach. It's one page and it shows all the steps and everything that I do to sell their property. And there's a lot of things that I do different from other agents. And I explain to them in detail what I do. Okay. And then I say, okay, are you ready to commit working with me? And most of them are thrown off and they're like, well, don't you want to give me a price? I said, no, this is not how we work. We first commit to working with each other. And once we are committed, I come out to your house and then we'll discuss the price. I can give you a range more or less, but I can't give you like the detailed price unless I come out to your property. I mean, sometimes I can give them a detailed price, but most of the time I want to then come to the house. So they sign the listing agreement without a price on the listing agreement.
Okay. So can you just repeat that for everyone? You're not going to the property to even discuss price until they've signed a commitment to work with you.
Yes, correct.
I love that.
And then when they say, wow, that's unusual, I said, I understand this might be a little bit different, but as we discussed before, I do things different from other agents, and my sellers are very committed to me. They see that I do things different for a reason. I get them more money. My properties sell for 7.8% more than the market. So I pay for me, the other agent, and your dinners, fancy ones. So most of my sellers commit before we come out to the property. And this is just, I just make it sound very normal that we always do it like this. And I think the last 20 listings that worked like that.
So, all right. So much to take in. I just want to go back to, you had mentioned earlier, and I know this, but some people might not know this about you on the call. You've been doing this 9 years.
Yes.
How did you get into real estate? I know what you did before, but tell everyone what you did before. Because I often get from agents, I'm new to town. I don't know anyone. I don't have a database. Where do I go to get business? I need to buy leads.
Okay.
You don't do that.
No, I don't do that. So I was a stand-up comedian in Los Angeles. I performed in the Comedy Store, the LA Improv. I was actually really funny, guys. It was really funny. It was fun. I was talking about dating, and it was really funny. One day I'm going to do a stand-up comedy routine about real estate, and it's even going to be funnier. So anyway, so when I had my son when I was 25, so not really expected. So I was a young mom, and I couldn't do stand-up comedy because it paid like $8 per person that I brought to the venue. So I always wanted to have a lot of money. That was because I grew up with nothing, and my entire life I wanted to have a lot of money. So that's for me a big drive. I never wanted to be poor. I never wanted my kids to be as poor as I was growing up. I could never buy anything. I paid for all my life myself since I'm 11. So I was tutoring other kids since I'm 11. So I just knew this is not going to be an option for me when I have children. So my son was born, and we moved to Miami because my husband was a fashion model. God, everybody's going to laugh now.
No, if you see his pictures on Facebook, you won't laugh. He's very handsome.
He's very handsome. So we moved first to New York, and then we moved to Miami, and there was no acting going on in Miami. Like all I was doing was like stupid commercials and sports modeling. And I honestly, I like to move and talk, but I don't like to stand still and smile and pose. That's not for me. So I had a friend that was my realtor when I was renting properties, and he said to me, Kathrin, I mean, you're like so outgoing and so smart. Why don't you become a realtor? And I'm like, a realtor? So I took my test, and it took me like 7 months until I finally took my test in September 2011. And then till April, I didn't sign up with a brokerage because I thought it was just the most boring thing in the world. And then I did, and I went to a model party, and I met my first client. He bought a week later 3 apartments for his kids for $1.6 million, all cash, 6% commission. I'm like, oh my God, I love this. So, I wanted to make a lot of money, and real estate was the perfect vehicle. And then ever since, I just started loving, I think the main thing I love about real estate is creating wealth for people, and everybody that works with me, at least the investors, they all make money. And I love that. Sometimes when I sell somebody something, I'm like, wow, I wish I had the money, right? And I just love the vehicle that real estate can create for you. Also, if you buy yourself properties, I mean, I own by now 8 properties. I could already retire, not in Miami, but probably anywhere else I could have a good living, and I'm not even 40. So real estate is really a great opportunity, and I'm so glad this friend of mine pushed me into this, which I thought was totally crazy.
Yeah. Well, and I know you're really into helping your clients build net worth, and I've we've talked a lot outside of real estate sales and building our own net worth. And, that was one of my goals by the time I was 40. Not that I wanted to live off that rental income, but could I retire and really have a decent income just from rental income?
Yeah.
And I hit that goal. I know you did the same, and you're continuing to invest, and your clients really trust you. And for me, that's a mission in my brokerage and on my team is, how many families can I help increase their net worth? Because then I know they're going to give back to their community. And that's really important to me, is seeing them pour back into their community. So when you're having these conversations with your clients, these aren't sales conversations. You're not teaching people sales tactics, even in your brokerage, when you're mentoring people. Your conversations are revolved around where are they putting their money and how are they investing? And you're shifting their thinking and asking them questions about how they're going to put it into real estate. So what do those conversations look like? I know you're really good at kind of simplifying it so they better understand it, even when you think they already understand it. If that makes sense.
Yes, true. I found that a lot of people, and my kids are friends with a lot of kids whose parents are either physicians or lawyers, and they all have extra disposable income. I mean, nobody needs, like, those lawyers make like 20,000 a month. Their cost of living is maybe 10, so they have extra income. And normally, what they do, they just put it in the stock market. And I found that a lot of people that have great income, they are not financially very smart. And once you start having this conversation with physicians, and I know a lot of physicians that own multifamily buildings, and they got into it because a realtor pushed them 20 years ago, right? So you just need to come from curiosity, and sometimes also hold them the mirror in front of their face. Because I have friends that have $1 million in the stock market, but they only own one home, is the home they live in. And I just want to grab them by the shoulders and shake them and just show them better ways, because they could invest it so much better. So what I'm doing, I take videos and show people how they can, with $500,000, instead of putting it in the bank, how they can buy 5 properties worth $500,000 each. And in 15 years, they're paid off. And then they're like technically 2.5 million, but by then they're probably going to be worth much more. And I'm trying to, get them to start thinking a little bit different and get them out of their comfort zone, because we all know physicians and lawyers, they are physicians and lawyers because they want something safe and secure, right? Yes. And they think of us realtors as like just a transactional piece, but that we are somebody that creates them wealth is something that you need to establish within their mindset. They need to first realize, oh, you really want to help me? Because the truth is, with those investors, if they buy a property, whatever price they buy it at, their 3% is not going to make me rich, right? I have listings for $2.5–3 million where, yeah, there I make the big money. With those investors, it's more like the relationship or how many properties you sell them over the years. And I tell them all the time, I'm like, look, I'm not telling you this because I want to make money off of you. I want you to make the money, right? That's what I want. And that is my passion. And it drives me crazy when they don't understand what I mean. So what we're doing now, we're doing workshops for them. We're doing workshops for first-time investors, for people that own a home or don't own a home. I have people from New York that are renting in New York and they're buying their first property here in Miami. So it's just, you need to get into their mind space somehow between all their busy stuff.
Well, and I think it's important to also shift your thinking from being a sales associate, which so many people get caught up in, is, how much am I selling? And my sales volume is this. At the end of the day, what matters is how you've increased your net worth also. And if you are limited to only being a sales associate and you haven't invested in your own real estate, it's an integrity thing almost when you're advising someone else on how to invest. If you haven't done it yourself. So I think that shift in the mindset is really important. Did you get open to that being in Gary Keller's masterminds, or what kind of changed your thinking with that?
With investing, you mean?
Yeah, kind of just going from just strictly doing sales, because there might be people on the call that are thinking about investing and wanting to do what you do, and having some rental income properties and being able to be a trusted real estate advisor to their clients versus just being their sales associate, being transactional?
We don't have the Gary Keller Mastermind for longer than a year now. So I started investing before. I guess it's just my German mindset of always saving. I think in the beginning, when you want to start a rental income portfolio, you have to make some sacrifices. I see a lot of clients and I know how much money they make because, I'm copied on the lender, and they make half the money that I make and they buy a house double the money that I own. And I'm just thinking to myself, why? But then I don't want to talk them out of the house, right? I think it's very important to be financially responsible. I see a lot of people that go on vacation 4 times a year. And truth be told, I took my first vacation this past summer in 10 years. So I haven't been on vacation in a very long time. I lived until 2 years ago in a 2-bedroom house, 1,300 square feet with both of my children in a nice area, but we lived very below our means. And now we live in a nice 5-bedroom with pool in Coral Gables, really nice area. But I bought also my house. It was the crappiest house on the block. And I put a little bit of money into it, and now it's doubled in value within 2 years. So I've just always lived below my means, and every dollar that I made, I saved and put towards properties. So it was more a strategic thing, and at the same time, lesson learned from my upbringing. I know my parents, they lost a house in the 80s. They bought a house with adjustable interest rate, and the interest rate went up to like 22%. So they lost their house. So my mother was scared to buy another house for her whole life. And then when I was like 4 or 5 years old, we moved into a rental property, and we rented that property for 16 years. So my parents paid that property off for the owner. And when we moved out, the property had tripled in value, and we moved out with nothing. And I just thought to myself at that moment, how stupid is that, right?
Yeah.
So just because my parents were so afraid to be in a situation like this again. I mean, I don't want to judge them for that, but I realized in that moment, if I'm in a property, I want to own it. And what I do every 2 years, I move. I either sell the previous house because I get tax-free capital gain. So I just sold my house that I was in 5 years ago, and I made $250,000 profit. And now that house that I'm in right now, I want to move to another house, and I'm probably going to keep that one, but maybe I'll sell it. And it's just all about priorities. And when I see people, sometimes they go 10 times a year to Disney and they spend on each trip $4,000. That's $40,000. I'm like, that's a down payment on a house.
Yeah, no,
it's like I have my priorities a little bit different than most people. People sometimes think I'm a little bit extreme, but
No, I love it. And I think that's probably why the first time I met you at a Keller Williams conference, I mean, we were like a magnet to each other. I think we just found each other in this large crowd, and I was like, wow, where have you been my whole life? Like,
another smart woman.
I was like, and you're dressed to the nines, like you're my people. No, I love your thinking, and I feel that's, you attract like-minded people, and I think that's also why you attract the clients you do.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's personality, like you said, a lot of your clients are high D, you're straight to the point, you're very direct, you're honest with them. But you do have to shift when you have those other clients that are a little bit more steady paced.
Oh yes.
Slow it down a little bit.
Very slow. I mean, I get off the computer, I have to scream, but it works. But you know what you said with, I really think that my clients appreciate that I own myself properties, and whenever I am out with them, I make sure they know that, and the clients really look up to you in a different way, because they know you've been there, they know you're in their shoes, and you would not recommend them anything that you wouldn't buy.
Yeah. And I'm honest with my clients. I tell them, oh, I just sold this rental investment. Well, they're like, well, why did you sell? I'm like, well, we're right here in the market. It's been cash flowing nicely, and we had great tenants in there. I've owned it more than 2 years. Like, time to move on to the next investment. And so they're like, well, what are you going to do now? And I said, I see a huge opportunity with commercial. You know, I own other commercial buildings. I'm looking for more commercial. And so then that opens up a whole new conversation. I think it's just easier to talk to them when they know you're actually doing those activities yourself. They trust that you are going to be that wonderful advisor for their family to increase their net worth. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. And there's also opportunities when you have clients, you can sometimes partner up with them.
Yeah.
If you find a good flip or something, I've found that also to be very valuable.
So give us an example of how that conversation came about. I mean, when you're in conversation with a client who's looking for their own investment, and that's a kind of a fine line. A lot of agents would be like, wow, I don't know if I'd partner with my client. Like, how would that work with that relationship? It's a risk. So how did use an example of how you've worked that out with the client?
For example, I had a really good property that I, nurtured. I was doing a flip actually across the street, and that house, it was abandoned. They took the drywalls out. It had black mold. So it was like a total gut job. And I met the owner and I said to him, look, if you're looking to sell it, I probably have a buyer for you. And he's like, well, I want to fix it up and then sell it. So I gave him some estimates on how much it is to fix it up. It was too much for him. And then he's like, let's just sell it. And I had a client that wanted to buy it. And I said to him, look, I have this great opportunity. You want to buy it? He's like, let me think about it. And I'm like, think about it. It's such a good deal. And I felt that it was not fair to me to just make my 3%. And the guy's a real estate agent, but he lets me keep the 6%, whatever I find him. And then when it comes time to resell it, he uses me to resell it too. But I felt still those 6% plus 3% are not enough for, the great deal that I found him. And we as realtors, we always make just our 3%. So we went creative and I said to him, look, what about if I don't charge any commission on the purchase and we put it towards the property and I get some equity in the house and you give me a percentage of the profit. So he bought the property for $380. Put 200,000 into it, so we had 580, right? I sold the property for $1,050,000.
Wow!
So the guy made like $500,000 in profits, and I made a good chunk too. So I thought it was fair for me because I brought this opportunity to him, and it was a win-win for both of us. So the next deal that I find, I will definitely approach him again. And if in the future, if I have to put money or something, I will.
I love that. All right. So we have about 13 minutes left. I want to respect everyone's time. Any questions for Kathrin? I know we rolled through a lot of information. She's very dynamic. So there's a lot going on with her business and how she runs it. Any ahas or questions for Kathrin? I'm going to look in the chat too, if you want to come off mute or go in the chat box. No questions? Oh, here we go. We do have a comment. Chuck Anderson says, fabulous presentation. Well, thank you for joining us, Chuck. I'm going to have questions if no one else does. I mean, I'm going to selfishly take the time to pick your brain, and I probably will have many more questions after this. So I will be texting you. So you bought these rental properties out of state. And are you identifying them online and making an offer, or are you actually, what's the market like in these mountain areas that you're buying, just out of curiosity?
So the way I came even about those properties was I went on vacation. It was my birthday in June, and I sat on the terrace and we paid for that property $350 per night. And I sat on the balcony and I pulled out my phone and looked in the KW app and couldn't believe that the houses, they were like $200,000, $300,000. And I did the math and I'm like, holy cow.
You're calculating this math as you're sitting
on vacation. This is like a gold mine. So 2 weeks later, we made an offer on a property that came on the market sight unseen. And I think it was totally listed too low. And then we got it even lower. And then the listing agent forgot to tell us that it has a brand new roof. I thought I had to replace the roof, but he made a mistake. And I'm like, okay, good. And so we bought the first one with Keller Mortgage. Then we found another one. That one we saw in person when we came to close on the first house, and we liked it. We closed with a mail away closing. And the third one we bought sight unseen. We hired a property manager for those two houses, and we told her, look, we're looking for properties. If you find anything off market, we'll find you a finder's fee of $2,000, because she's not a licensed agent. And just find us something off market. She found us a property off market. And that one was not, we couldn't finance that one because it didn't have, so all the decks were rotted out. It had a lot of issues. But we got it for 160,000, and it needs $50,000 in work, and it's worth 400. And I already have a buyer for it. So I'm going to double
that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna flip that one, because whenever you can make that much profit,
yeah, I agree.
You need to sell it. My husband is doing all the interior design from far away, so he's just ordering stuff. The property manager is installing it, and we just have reliable people there. So it really depends on the deal. If you're familiar with a certain area and you love the area, it's really easy to buy. You don't need to be there. You can buy it sight unseen. I mean, you can go during the inspection, but if it's a good deal, we buy it sight unseen. I mean, those properties were a gold mine. I make on those properties, like the one rents for $12,000 a month. My mortgage is $1,100. The other one rents for $8,000 to $9,000 a month. January, February is a little bit dead, so the rental income is like $2,000 on each of them. But then March, we already have tons of bookings, so we make a large profit on them. And I think both of them, because of COVID, nobody was buying for it a while. I could resell both of those properties already for $100,000 more, the first two that I bought. So
they're appreciating, you have equity, and they're cash flowing.
Correct. So whenever you vacation somewhere, and it doesn't need to be for vacation rental, right? But whenever you vacation somewhere and you find it's a good market, something that cash flows a lot, something that has a good school district, I only buy 3 bedrooms or bigger, you can confidently buy in any area in the United States. I'm actually right now looking, where else can I invest? Because I don't want to have more properties in Miami. I already have a lot. So I'm looking. I would even invest in your area if there's, I mean, I wrote you on that horse property, right?
Yeah, good.
So guys, I'm a cash buyer. I'm an investor. So if you have any good properties, any good multifamily, I love multifamily, duplex, triplex, quadruplex, always send it to me, even if it needs work. And this is also something that a lot of realtors underestimate. You have your own clients, realtors, because a lot of them make a lot of money, and they want to put the money somewhere. So take advantage of that. And anybody that finds me a great deal, I don't even want a referral fee, I just want a good deal, and I'm happy.
Well, I love that. I love just kind of, again, we're shifting the mindset, I hope, for a lot of people on the call to think about what we do for a living and how can we kind of consult with other agents that, I see a lot of agents in my area that are buying a lot of things that don't appreciate, and some of which is also living in a big house on the water, living, here. And that's great when you're making a lot of money, but like you said, kind of living below your means might be something to think about, so that you can buy these investment properties and have a whole nother line of income. And when you do vacation, I'm the same. I love traveling. So I'm a little different when you're saying not going on. I won't sacrifice my vacations. I will sacrifice not having that house on the water, because I've lived here my whole life, and I've been on boats my whole life. So I've seen the water. I'm good. I can live in a little house and rent out all my other properties. But I tell you what, vacationing and traveling and being able to write some of that off because you are actually looking to invest in those areas is very smart. And then you learn about that market. You get to meet other agents. And I think it changes their mindset too, when they're like, wait, you're an agent, but you're a buyer looking for yourself to invest. Yes.
That's not a competition. Agents are not always a competition. And then one other thing I want to give you all guys as a little nugget, what I'm doing now when I meet sellers and they're highly motivated, especially estate sales, I always ask them how much they would sell the property for right away without any commission, because you can buy that property too. And this year I had 2 really, really good listings that I really should have bought myself. I should have bought it, held onto it, painted it a little bit, cleaned it up, and resold. Because some people, they want the cash and they want it now, especially when they inherit a property that's worth $500,000 and there's 4 heirs and they live somewhere in the middle of nowhere. They have no money. It's the first time in their life that they get money. They don't care if they get 110,000 or if they get 90,000 because they want it tomorrow so they can buy for the first time in their life a nice car. It is like that. So don't be shy to ask the sellers, as long as you disclose it and you have the writer. I don't think, I always felt it's unethical, but if they are open to sell it for that price, you should go for it.
I always disclose, and I don't go on a lot of listing appointments because I have a team now. I'm still in a little bit of production, but hopefully almost out. But I will disclose if it's a listing that I'm actually interested in. I will say before I even get there, just so you know, I'm an investor and I very much might be interested in purchasing your property depending on what I find when I get there. So I'm letting you know that before I get there. I'm happy to discuss a traditional way of listing your property should I not be interested in buying it, but I just want to let you know I'm a buyer as well. That way there's no confusion when I get there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I like that. And then how do you go about the pricing?
I come up with sometimes and say, I'll get an appraisal if that makes you feel better. I do have an appraiser that only does private appraisals. He doesn't do them for banks. So that might be something that I'm happy to split, and if I don't buy it, they can use it on listing their property. The problem with appraisals right now, as you know, supply and demand is really dictating the market, and our opinions, unfortunately, are not always what matters. There's things selling for prices or houses are going for pricing that I don't actually agree with, but it's what someone's willing to pay at that given time, and that's market value.
Yeah.
So we do have a question. I'm going to go in the chat box. This is from Nicole. I would love to purchase my first investment property this year, yet I know I don't have adequate income history to secure a loan. Are there other ways to make this happen besides other people's money, hard money? What would the two of you recommend? So looking forward to following in your footsteps. Thank you. So what would you recommend? And then I'll obviously give my opinion.
I would try to find properties that have been on the market for a while, that are sitting, and would approach them to see if they would do owner financing. I've bought one of our properties that I bought for my son. It was a little condo in South Beach. I bought it with seller financing, and that was not really planned because the guy said, tell me what you need. I can also do seller financing. And then I was like, oh, cool, because your closing costs are so much lower. And then 2 years later, I just paid it off. So this is something you can do, and then later you can refinance it. There is a lot of sellers that can't sell their property for whatever reason, and they're more negotiable. And sometimes it's also better for their tax situation to sell a finance. So you just need to find the property. And as you know, I said before, there is a deal in any market. So you just need to look out and do your homework.
I 100% agree with you. I definitely like seller financing. I've even purchased commercial buildings with lease options. So I put money down, make sure it's the right space. I can lease out some of the space, or maybe I'm going to occupy it for one of my businesses. So I do like that. And interest rates are so low. So don't be afraid of hard money. I'm not afraid of hard money. I know some people might have heard some horror stories about it, but the interest rates are so low. So, if you're paying a little bit higher interest rate with hard money, but you don't have to deal with the bank and it's a time thing for you, then I would be open to it. Just make sure you have someone that maybe is mentoring you, or it can counsel you on that process so you don't get caught up in a situation. So I'm not saying sign off on anything without getting it reviewed, but don't be afraid of hard money. I think if you're going to flip it, sometimes that's an option.
And
okay, thank you.
I can give you a really good example for the hard money. That was like 4 years ago, when 4 years ago, I didn't have the income that I have right now. And we found this great commercial space 2 blocks from the water, and it was on 2 main streets. It was like a storefront bicycle store. And it was clearly listed too low. It was listed at $525. And my husband found it. My husband always finds the deals. So he's like, we should look at this. It was rented at $4,000 a month, and we really wanted to buy it, but they had cash offers. So we put a cash offer in, and we purchased it on a hard money loan. Long story short, I bought it for $480. I refinanced it 4 months later. It appraised for $750. I raised the rent to 6,500. It's now worth 1.2 million 4 years later, right? And my mortgage is 2,200 a month, and my rental income is 6,500. This is my best asset. And if I hadn't done it
that's
with
incredible.
the hard money loan, and it cost me 20,000 to refinance it, but it was well worth it. So I would never say no to hard money, as long as you're aware of the risks and, you know, have a backup plan.
I love
Thank
it.
you.
Well, gosh. And Nicole, we'll talk a little bit more later. I have some background with some things I've done too, but just an essence of time, and I want to respect everyone's time. It's 12:59. Do we have any other questions for Kathrin? Got 1 minute left. All right. Well, this is recorded. Ashley will be sending out the recording. Thank you so much. This is, I mean, I always learn from you. So I'm blessed and honored and humbled to be your friend. And I appreciate you sharing all of your wisdom and knowledge, and go have a great week.
You're very welcome, Brandy. I love you.
Love you too.
To all of you.
Yeah.
Have a
Thank
great
you so
day.
much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.